Welcome back to another set review. My name is Scott, and we have March of the Machines. Interesting set. Definitely has to follow in some big footsteps with Phyrexia All Will Be One. I loved that set. It was one of those sets when I was coming into review, was like, okay, this seems okay, but man, did I love that set. So March of the Machines, interesting. We've got new types, which is cool. We've got siege cards, which we'll obviously go through. So if you haven't seen one of my set reviews, it is purely from a mono black perspective in Commander. So we'll have a look at some of the new cards obviously being added, where that might be leading mono black in the future, or what it's adding to current archetypes of mono black. So let's first go through the only commander for mono black in this set, and boy is it a good one. Okay, Shieldred, many Shieldreds. Now we've got our third copy, probably the last, spoiler alert, she dies. Shieldred 3 and 2 black, Phyrexian Praetor, Menace, 4/5. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. Then you can pay 4 and a black, exile it, and then essentially return it flipped. You can only do this as a sorcery, and if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, right? So first up, we'll just talk about the front face. 4/5 for 5, sure, whatever. Menace, I don't really care. So it comes in, it's going to get essentially up to a 3/1, which is really, really nice. It's going to force your opponents to sacrifice non-tokens, which is also nice. So you're going to get cards, and cards will be relevant. The 5 and a black is, a steep cost, right? It's already a 5 cost mana, and then you have to pay 5 again. So flipping it is not necessarily going to be the easiest thing. Your opponent's having 8 cards in their graveyard, and opponent, I think, is okay to achieve. I think it's harder than probably people think. I think the deck will have a little bit in it to just nudge them in the right direction, and you'll see why on the other side, because essentially this will it has payoffs for this kind of effect. So yeah, it's going to be flippable, but it's going to be more of a late game thing. So let's see transform. So on the other side, True Scriptures, it's going to be a saga. Love sagas. So the first one, this one doesn't have read ahead, so you have to kind of go through it. First one, for each opponent, destroy a target creature or planeswalker, right? So you're getting up to 3 creatures on the front side. You're then getting up to 3 creatures and or planeswalkers on the back side. Then the next one is each opponent discards 3 cards and mills 3 cards. So discarding 3 cards is actually pretty hefty, right? That's a lot of cards out of an opponent's hand. So it will be your opponent's 3 worst cards, but it's still quite a lot, especially if it's some kind of cantrip deck or something like that, right, where they just need cards in their hand. And then of course the third one, being the big one, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, then exile it, which means it returns back on the other side. And of course on the other side it will then destroy creatures, but in theory, they might not have anything because you've destroyed a whole bunch. It's interesting. This is an interesting card, right? I feel like Wizard of the Coast really dug deep into my soul of what I enjoy about Mono Black. That is making my opponent sacrifice creatures, having them discard cards, and then reanimation. So yeah, really, really cool card. I think there's going to be some cool and interesting ways to build it. Like I said, on the front side, I think you need an opponent to have 8 cards in their graveyard, so having that to nudge them towards that effect. But of course, that is then going to feed into your Rise of the Dark, your reanimation effect, right? So Yeah, it's both the enabler and payoff, which is really really cool. But it is over multiple turns, so I'm not sure how slow it's gonna be. But I'm definitely excited to build this. I'm not sure, like you can build this as like a mill deck, but in mono black, it's not really well supported. I think a lot of people are going to go down a discard route, pretty much just make this a discard deck, and they're going to be discarding those creatures so that you can get it for your reanimation effect. And of course, you are destroying creatures and or planeswalkers, as well as sacrificing them on the front side. So you're putting cards into the graveyard, and then of course reanimating them at the end. Yeah, it's a super powerful. I think people are going to groan at this one, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to build this one, but it could be very mono black good stuff, or it could be a discard deck, or you know, it could just fit in the 99 of other decks, right? So I think ultimately very popular, will be the most popular mono black commander of this set, of course, but overall I think it will be a popular commander, but people will groan and they can get used to it. Okay, so rares and mythics. Okay, first up, Infernal Sovereign, 4 and 2 black demon, flying, trample, 6/6. Skip your draw step. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So this is Null Profusion, similar-esque, which I love. I love that card. So flying, travel, 6/6, cool. Skip your draw step. You know, that's a bit of a downside. But whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you're going to draw a card and lose a life. Really, really fantastic, right? You can just start going through your deck. You might need a low CMC style deck, which is not always, I guess, suited for mono black. I'm trying to think of like mono black spell slinger, but Toshiro is not really, like, it's more of a reactive deck, so you don't really have like a lot of cheap spells. So this might be suited for like a blue black red Grixis style deck, but you know, you get this, you play a land, you're gonna get at least that card that you missed. So the idea is, I guess, to play 2-3 spells. So if you think you can do that, this might be a cool card. It is a 6-mana demon, so you know, demon tribal, reanimating this into play. This works really well with Villas, right? Every time you cast a spell, you're gonna lose a life, draw a card, then draw another card from losing that life. So I think, yeah, this could find some spots. I love the art. I will definitely give it a go, but you know, for 6 mana, you then need to do something afterwards, so just to kind of at least try to get something back. So if you can do that, I think it might be cool. Okay, Invasion of Innistrad. I'll read this sideways. So this is our first battle, or subtype siege. So how it works, essentially, you know, it comes in, your opponent will one of your opponents will defend it, and you and your other opponents can obviously attack it. Yeah, so this one's flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -13 until end of turn, for 2 and 2 black, and it has 5 defense counters on it. So kind of like a Planeswalker and Loyalty. You will attack or remove these counters, and then it will flip on the other side. So with the front side, 4 mana for this effect, not really what you're kind of looking for. This is already very similar to a single cost card. So you know, that one requires a creature to be sacrificed, so maybe we can say this is a 2 mana effect, if that. So 4 mana, it's not ideal, and of course it can transform to Deluge of the Dead, which is enchantment, so it gives you 2 zombies, which is kind of cool. And then 2 and a black, you can exile target card from graveyard. If it's a creature, create a zombie. Like, would you even play this in a zombie deck? It's some removal. The attacking for, like, getting rid of 5 defense counters is a lot. So in mono black, there's no, like, not really a lot of direct damage kind of effects that are going to work here, but it does have some remove counter effects, but they're so niche you really want to either be doing it yourself or, you know, be in a meta that has like a lot of planeswalkers or something. Like, it's just so niche that you're not really going to have a lot of remove counter effects. So swinging out at this for 5 means that you're not swinging out at your opponents. I think in Commander, this is probably better than, say, you know, Standard or something. Yeah, like maybe if I have Infernal Sovereign and I have a bunch of flyers, sure, I'll flip it over and then I get this Deluge of the Dead. But in my zombie tribal deck, I don't really have that. I'm gonna give it a go because I just don't really know how sieges are gonna feel, but I'm not too excited, especially for a mythic. I think at mythic it's because in limited this would be busted, but yeah, it's a cool card. Repeatedly making zombies, and if it's a, but so many times it's like, I mean, then you just wouldn't put this in a Shieldred deck, right? Because I want my opponents to have those creatures. I don't want to exile them. But yeah, kind of cool. Zombie tribal, maybe. There's a bit of Swamp Walk in zombie tribal, so maybe you can hit this. Convincing your other opponents that is not the defender to attack this just seems unlikely. I don't. It'd be very rare that I could convince my opponent, unless like we need to get a creature out of the graveyard, could I convince my opponents to attack it as well. So yeah, cool card, interesting. Archpriest of Shadows, 3 and 2 black, human warlock, backup 1, which means when it enters the battlefield, it gets give a creature +1/+1 counter. If it's another creature, it gets whatever this effect is. It's a 4/4. It has Death Touch. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. I love this card. I mean, I love it, and the more I've thought about it, the worse it's got, but I still kind of dig it. But I recognize that it's probably not the best card. So essentially, you need a commander that's turn 4. Then you play this, you target your commander. Then you have to have something in the graveyard. Your commander, you know, now has Death Touch. You know, so you're going to possibly get in or at least trade with something. So it's kind of cool. I was thinking about this in a Rankle Master of Pranks deck. You know, that coming down to 4. Hitting opponents, this coming down on 5, then getting that reanimation because Rankle has the discard, so I've set it up the turn before, or I can layer these triggers so that Rankle's one goes first, so I can put something in the graveyard, then reanimate this. So I kind of like it, but I recognize that it requires a lot of setup. I have to have a creature that I want to attack the turn before that's not summoning sick, or has haste, not really a mono black thing though, and I have a creature in my graveyard, so there's a lot of setup. I love the art. It's probably one of my favorite, but might not be a good card. Blight Titan, 4 and 2 black, Phyrexian Giant, Death Touch. Whenever Blight Titan, and 6/6, whenever Blight Titan enters the battlefield, attacks, mill 2 cards, then incubate X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So yeah, interesting, you know, Grave Titan kind of thing. Death Touch 6/6, kind of cool. You're milling, so you're facilitating that, but really, like, how much does X have to be, right? Incubate is essentially you get a artifact token that you can pay 2 to transform it into a Phyrexian creature with that count, with those counters on, right? So X has to be 4, 6, right? Because you have to pay 2 mana then to transform it. Ultimately, you play this in your Phyrexian tribal deck, all right? Do I really want this in an artifact deck? It's still an artifact on the other side when it transforms. No, I mean, it's just so expensive. 6 mana to just get this artifact that might turn into a creature. Yeah, not really interested, but Phyrexian Tribal, I might give it a go. And of course, there are some Phyrexian Tribal cards for mono black, probably not that well supported, and I guess we'll see why. Bloated Processor, 2 and a black, Phyrexian. So it's a 3/2. Sacrifice another Phyrexian put a counter on it. When it dies, incubate, where X is its power. So free sack outlets, fantastic. I think 3 mana is, you know, a perfectly fine rate for a free sack outlet. Even though the effect is not that great, but of course this is sacrifice only another Phyrexian, so A, it can't sacrifice itself, and B, it is only Phyrexians. I don't think there's enough really good mono black Phyrexians to make a tribal deck. I think you need that to be filled out with some other colors, like black white. So yeah, ultimately just not really interested. You're not really going to be paying enough Phyrexians. Breach the Multiverse, 5 and 2 black sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker in their graveyard. Put that on the battlefield. Then for each creature, it's a Phyrexian. Yeah, 7 mana though. Milling 10 is quite a lot, right? That's 10% of the deck. You're gonna hit a creature or a planeswalker. And it includes you as well, so you've obviously designed it for some big stuff, so at least you know you're going to hit something possibly big, and then for your opponents you might get something okay. So 7 mana sorcery, like how much value do you need to get? 14 mana's worth maybe? For this kind of effect. You get to mill 10 cards, so it's kind of nice for Shieldred. I don't think this card is good, but I definitely will be giving it a go just to see how it feels. But these kind of just big, like mass reanimate, like get one thing from each of your opponents. Your opponents play crappy cards, right? So come on. It's just, it might just not work for you, and you'll get your good card. Yeah, bad card will play. And I guess maybe that's applicable to all these cards. Ensanguinator, Cavalry, 2 and a black, Vampire Knight, Menace Lifelink. Whenever a knight you control deals combat damage, you get a counter on it, and a blood token, and it's 2/3. Yeah, this is kind of cool. Mono black knights, I haven't really looked into mono black knights. That kind of looks fun, but probably not supported too much. It probably like a Mardu knights thing, but this is kind of nice. Blood tokens, I've actually really liked blood tokens, just to get through your deck. It's an artifact that can go to the graveyard, so it's really nice. Yeah, obviously knights travel, but outside of that, you know, if this is your only knight, I wouldn't really bother. Grafted Butcher, 1 and a black, 2/2 Phyrexian Samurai, very cool. Enters the battlefield. Phyrexians gain menace until end of turn. Other Phyrexians get +1/+1, and you can sacrifice an artifact creature and return it to the battlefield. Only activated sorcery. This is kind of cool. Again, you know, this is really a Phyrexian tribal. Not too supported in mono black, so I mean, well, there are lots of black Phyrexians, but most of them are not that great. So yeah, this is cool. I think this is more of a it might be suited for other colors, but ultimately very powerful for a lot. 2 mana, not just pumps them, but can return itself to the battlefield and give them menace until end of turn. Very cool. All right. MVP of the set, Hoarding Brood Lord, 5 black, dragon, convoke. When it enters the battlefield, it has flying, and it's 7/6. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, exile it face down, so your opponents don't get to see it, then shuffle. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may play it, and spells you cast from exile have convoke. So the whole playing out of exile is really more of a red thing or a Rakdos thing, so not too supported in black, but this card alone I think is just fantastic, right? It is basically Runescar Demon, but for 1 extra mana you get a not demon, you get a dragon, with 7/6. And yeah, and then when the spell you get has convoke, so this has some really cool lines in it. Basically with saw it in half, so you get that, you get saw in half, you saw this in half because that has convoke, you saw this in half, then you have 2 of these, then you go get like sacrifice and Peer into the Abyss, and you just draw your whole deck, like, and you use these for the 2 tokens for convoke, and oh man, it just feels so good. So Yeah, I'm really digging this. Really, really cool to reanimate. It's a big threat that's going to reanimate. And yeah, whatever spell you get just has Convoke. I don't think you need too many. Like, there are some big spells that just with a couple, mana off, feels really good. So I'm definitely going to play with Hoarding Broodlord. I love the art. Yeah, I just dig this card so much. I really like Convoke. Convoke's hard. It reads and sounds better than it is, especially in mono black. You really need to obviously be going wide, and sometimes it's just not a mono black thing. Sometimes I've just got one creature, two creatures, right? So Burkos decks will probably be fine. Any kind of token deck, zombie tribal deck, stuff like that will probably be fine with Convoke in general. But mono black dragon's not really a thing. And playing from exile's not always a thing. There are some cards, but it's more of a red thing. So yeah, anyway, love this card. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, Invasion of Fura. Read sideways. So it's a siege. So when it enters the battlefield, you can either, or you can do both, destroy all legendary creatures, destroy all non-legendary creatures, or just essentially destroy all of them. So 6 mana for this effect. Oof. Like 6 mana for a board wipe. Essentially, this is, damnation, without the regen clause. But then you get so you've destroyed all the creatures. Now you have to kill this this siege that has 4 counters, but you've destroyed the creatures, so maybe you need to keep your commander, maybe. So maybe if you have a commander that does 4 and maybe it has flying or something, so you can actually swing out. I'm not too sure. The other side is my Chaser Resolute Monarch. Very cool. 3/6 human noble, menace, death touch. Whenever it attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent, so that includes sieges. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt combat damage since your last turn, draw a card and you lose life. Essentially, kind of like Monarch. Kind of. So, yeah, really, really cool. It has to attack, though. So when a siege flips, it actually exiles and comes back on the other side. So if you're doing it on your turn, you're not going to be able to attack. But if you can do it on your opponent's turns, then you'll be able to attack on your turn, obviously. So that's probably kind of how you want to do it. But how do you get it to flip on your opponent's turns? A bit difficult because we don't really have direct damage sort of effects. So it's going to be difficult, and in this case, this is more of a maybe play it, set it up for later, but then is my Chaser really that good? I love the art, but I think this is an expensive effect, but could be, it's a fun card. At least you get something when you flip it, but will you ever flip it? It'd be hard, it'd be difficult, I think. Liliana's talent black for an aura enchant a Planeswalker. Planeswalker gets -8 to put all creatures cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, which is a fantastic effect. Obviously, whenever a creature deals combat damage to enchanted Planeswalker, destroy that creature. That secondary effect, sure, okay, someone's gonna swing out at your Planeswalker and going to kill it. I love like a Liliana tribal deck. I played a Yawgmoth Super Friends deck, so this it would be nice in there, obviously, because you got a bunch of Planeswalkers, but then you've got a bunch of Planeswalkers and you're trying to get creatures in the graveyard. So maybe this is just a Liliana Heretical Healer card, which I will definitely try. And -8, Liliana Heretical Healer is on 3, 5, 7, and then another turn to get to 9, then 8, but then you've got its ultimate where you get a creature every turn. Yeah, ultimately I think this card's probably not very good, but it has Liliana, so you put it in your Liliana tribal deck. Lochthwain Lancer for a black human knight. Menace, it's a 5/5. Whenever a non-token knight you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you draw a card. Yeah, really, really cool. I think if you play like Maskwood Nexus, in a deck, you might want to play this. Yeah, ultimately, yeah, mono black Knights, not really a thing. It's a 5-mana 5/5. Who really cares? Yeah, this says it can't really come back, so you can't keep sacrificing itself. Yeah, ultimately not too interested. Path of the Schemer. 4 and a black sorcery. Each player mills 2 cards, then put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's an artifact, and then it has this Will of the Planeswalker, which essentially means you vote for Planeswalk or Chaos. You can either Planeswalk or do the Chaos for your Planes Chase. Ultimately, yeah, unless you're playing Planes Chase, it's not really that great. 5 mana to reanimate a creature is not really particularly strong. Very, very common. You get a bit of a mill. Yeah, if you're playing Plane Chase, stick it in. Pile on. 3 and a black instant convoke. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Surveil 2. So this is very similar to Lethal Schemes. Lethal Schemes is a really, really nice spell. I find that if I can pay Lethal Schemes for 2, I'm happy. Anything more, as long as it's not inconvenient, I'll definitely like it. But with that one, you get to Connive, and this one you get to Surveil 2. So Surveil 2 could be interesting. I think Connive's a bit better than Surveil, because I get to actually put cards from my hand into the graveyard. So yeah, Surveil's powerful. I think I would play Lethal Schemes over this, but I think you could definitely play this as a secondary effect. Mono Black has some great removal spells. So is this like the 8th best removal spell? Sure, why not? But I like it. I'll definitely try it. Terror Tawashi, 2 and 2 black, Phyrexian Ogre. Very cool. Death Touch is a 4/3. Whenever it attacks, you may pay for. Whenever you do, return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. It's Phyrexian. I mean, you have to pay. You have to. It has to survive to attack. Then you have to pay 4 mana. So in theory, you've paid 4 mana. Then got to your turn, then attacked, then paid another 4 mana, and all you've got is 1 creature. And you had to have had something in there to set it up. Yeah, it's too many steps. Ultimately, not too interested. So cards I want to kind of try. I think Archpriest of Shadows I want to try, but ultimately will be bad. Infernal Sovereign I want to try, but ultimately will be bad. I think Hoarding Broodlord I want to try, and I think will be good. I need to try the Sieges to see, and I think Pylon will be popular as well. Okay, so uncommons and commons. This is actually one of the first sets in so long that I'm actually just not interested in any of these commons and uncommons. Ultimately, I just don't think they're very good. I think they're all really just set up for draft. Probably the only noted one, Final Flourish. 2 mana. It has the kicker of Sacrifice, which is always kind of nice, and it's -6/-6. Sure, I think there are better spells, but kind of cool. And then of course there's the functional functional reprint of Village Rites. So if you're playing Village Rites, you can put Corrupted Conviction in your deck. But I don't really play Village Rites. I don't think, it's not really that powerful. I think the one from Strixhaven, Plum the Forbidden. I do play Plum to the Forbidden? Plum of the Forbidden? Whatever. I do play that one quite regularly, I think, because that allows me to sacrifice more than 1 creature. So I'm always happy with that one, but Village Rites not particularly interested in. Plum the Forbidden, that's it. Plum the Forbidden, there we go. So yeah, uncommons and commons, just not interested. Not really interested in any of them. Okay, so colorless cards. Invasion of Ravnica, not really for mono black. It's a requires, it can kill something that's 2 colors, sure, or exile something with 2 colors, and whenever you cast something with 2 colors, so not really mono black. Sword of Once and Future, so the last of the sword of X and Y, +2/+2 blue protection from blue and black. Cool. Blue and black are obviously very popular cards. When it deals combat damage, Surveil 2. then you can cast a instant sorcery from your graveyard, essentially giving it flashback that has a mana value of 2 or less. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Blue and black, strong colors. Surveil 2 is cool, and instant sorcery from your graveyard that's mana value 2 or less. We don't really have a lot of cheap, like on the regular, you're not playing a lot of cheap 2 or less mana values sorceries. Even in a Toshiro deck, you might play this in a Toshiro deck, but other than that, you're playing Reanimate, you're playing Defile, you're playing Dark Ritual, but do I need to flash back them? Not really. Because it's from your graveyard. Not really something. I'm not too impressed, but protection from black and white is very cool. So I don't think it's the worst sword. I'd put it mid-range. I think Surveil 2 is kind of nice, being able to put that stuff in the graveyard. But I'm not too excited. Bit of Thorn, Nissa's Animus. 3 mana living weapon. Quick creature gets +1/+1. So essentially it's a 1/1 when it comes in. When it attacks, you search a library for basic, put it on the battlefield tap. So it's basically Sword of the Animus. It's quick 3. It's a bit expensive, but you do get the creature to attack with, which of course someone would just block, and then you get to equip it again for 3, but you've got your swamp. Just trying to think of, is there an equipment deck that we want to put it in? Not really in mono black. I wouldn't really put this in my Corlash deck either, where that does have Sword of the Animus. Maybe would I put it in? I don't know. It just feels a little too expensive. I think it's a 3 equip. Just feels a lot. I don't think the 3 mana living weapon thing is the problem. I think it's 3 equip just feels so much. Eco Elixir, 4 mana, taps for 2. It's for plane chase. If you roll die, you can roll that many +1 and ignore 1. So really just for plane chase. If you're playing plane chase, then play it. Realm Breaker, the invasion tree, 3 mana. So pay 2 and tap it. Target opponent mills 3 cards. Put a land card from their graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. Whenever this land would leave the battlefield, instead exile. And then 10, tap it, sacrifice this, and then return any number of Praetors. Right, so we're only going to have 3 Praetors, so probably not really that interesting. So is 3 mana, then paying 2 mana and tapping it to mill our opponent 3 cards, and then maybe get a land, put a land card from their graveyard. So it doesn't have to be one that they milled, so they could have milled it before. But then that's 5 mana, then 7 mana, then 9 mana, just to be up 3 lands. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like good value. So unless you're building a 5-color Predator deck, probably not interested. And the rest is just commons. No uncommon colorless cards, which is interesting. So yeah, in terms of the artifacts, I think Sword of Once and Future will definitely be played. Bit of Thorn, people might try. I don't think it's really going to be tried in mono black. Realm Breaker, I don't think it's very good. No uncommons I'm interested in. Like I said, Hoarding Broodlord, I'm definitely trying. People will love Liliana's talent because they love Liliana, which includes me. Pylon, people will try. Of course, all the sieges people will try, and they'll probably realize they're not too great. So yeah, ultimately, I'm not too interested. I think the interesting thing will be Shieldred, how popular Shieldred will be. I'll definitely give it a go, see how. I just haven't decided where I want to go, but it could just be generically good stuff. So how interesting that will be, for most people, I'm not too sure. For me, it will be perfectly interesting. But yeah, so cool set. it had some big shoes to fill with Phyrexia All Will Be One, which I loved. I've still got two of the decks still built and still playing very regularly and have been really enjoying. So usually that says something to me that I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, big shoes to fill. I think Shieldred will be fun to play, but your opponents are not gonna really enjoy it. Other than that, yeah, I'm gonna see what Horde and Broodlord's gonna be like and what Sieges are gonna be like. So yeah, interesting set. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.